Clutter? I would say, anybody here have clutter? And I know I would have a big show of hands. And so what I want to start with is a few things. One, I want you to feel safe and comfortable to talk about your clutter, because I know that clutter can often make people feel embarrassed or ashamed. This is not the place to be embarrassed or ashamed. It's just, it's stuff. It's stuff that we have to deal with, and it's stuff we're not taught in school how to deal with. K through 12, colleges and universities don't talk. There's not one single hour or class devoted to what to do with all the damn paper that comes through your front door every single day. It's a ubiquitous part of our life, and yet we have never been trained or taught how to deal with this. And that just, I will never be out of work. Okay. The other thing, ask questions, ask me anything. I am an open book, and I probably will have a response to any question that you have that has to relate to clutter, disorganization, productivity, your relationship with time. If you've got stuff in storage, you don't know what to do with grandma's platters from the old country. I mean, anything is on the table to ask. And then finally, what you won't hear in this presentation is how to fold anything. I'm not going to teach you how to be organized. For me, getting organized has everything to do with how our brain is wired. And I come from the position that often the clutter in our head is often a reflection of the stuff under our bed. And in fact, my 2017 publication called Psychic Debris, Crowded Closets, the relationship between the stuff in your head and what's under your bed, a lot of what I talk about can be found between those pages. And you can also find it on Audible. I recorded it early last year, or 2019. One of the first things that my company does when my ninja organizers are working in somebody's space, one of the first things we declutter are all the books that client has on how to get organized. Because those books tend to be written for people like me. I have, my brain is wired in such a way that the executive function part of my brain, the part of the brain that is planning, processing, timing, emotional management, sequencing, thinking of moving forward in a linear way, the executive function part of my brain that dictates all of those actions and activities, mine's very functional. Where dysfunction comes with the executive function, people with ADHD, anxiety, depression, people who are dealing with the ravages of chemotherapy, because it's going to shift the parts of our brain that allows us to be on time, moving forward, not making emotional decisions, thinking of making decisions on what to keep and let go from a logical perspective, not from that heart perspective. So oftentimes books on how to get organized were written for someone how I'm wired, not my mom. In my family of origin, there are 6 of us, 4 of us are like me, and 2 of us need us. So even though I started my professional life wanting, I finished my PhD in history at USC. I was at UCLA for 7 years. First in women's studies, where I met Deborah Drawley, the great Deborah Drawley. And then at UCLA Extension, where I was a director of programs for a few years. And in June of '08, I went to Jerusalem to visit a very good friend of mine. And while I was there, she lived near the Jericho gate in the old city. And while I was there, I called her up and I said, Nadra, I don't want to be a tourist today. How about if I do your kitchen? And she had this like, gasp of breath. And she goes, what do you mean by that? And I said, Nadra, your girls are in their 30s and you've got sippy cups in the cupboard. Just let me do what I do. So I spent the whole day decluttering and organizing her kitchen. And it was a good result. And I didn't think anything of it. And I came back to my desk at Extension. And a week later, I learned that my unit was being dismantled and my position eliminated. And I was quite surprised. I was about to turn 50 and I had never not had a job. And it turned out that my work at Extension was not a great fit for me. And I was not a great fit for them. And so in July of '08, I am now laid off. It was the beginning of the recession. And 2 months into that, I told my roommate, I said, look, I'm going to organize until something better comes along. I didn't have a job. And Ronnie, my roomie, said, well, let's look up organizers in the zip code. And the first person to come up was Catherine Macy. And Catherine Macy, as I read her website, has a PhD in mechanical engineering. And I thought, wow, organizers are smart people. Catherine took me over to her place for dinner. I asked her everything there was to ask about the world of professional organizers. I didn't even know that such a world existed. Catherine took me out on 2 jobs, and one job, she did 2 things for me. One, she took me to my first meeting of the LA chapter of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. And I walk into the room and it's all women and gay men. And I thought, I'm home. And then she took me on a job where I was assigned to declutter the boys' bathroom in Brentwood. And it was a big stinky mess. And I did what I do, and I got through the clutter. And the most defining feature of this bathroom, this boys' bathroom, were dozens of sports buttons, 3 inches in diameter, that parents buy to raise money for their kids' teams. And it's pictures of the kids with bats and balls, big buttons. Dozens of these flippin' buttons. And I'm like, who needs all these buttons? But apparently mom did. So I went into the garage, I found some rope, I braided the rope, and I stuck one piece of braided rope around one mirror, another around the other mirror. And I decided boy A was gonna have this sinking mirror, boy B was gonna have this sinking mirror. And the buttons abound, and the mother comes in and she sees the mirrors and she grabs her throat, tears come into her eyes, and she said, you made art out of the buttons. And I went, yes, I did. And that first year of starting my company, A Clear Path, I recognized several things with my first set of clients. One, my idea of decluttering and organizing is not your idea. What I think of being organized is not necessarily other people's ways of being organized. Right. I also had two sessions with 2 different clients really stand out for me. And one was this. I was hired to work with somebody on the ubiquity of paper in her house. And it's paper galore, every kind of paper, mail, Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, let them go. And so we did a session and we got through a lot of paper. She scheduled the next session and I said, before I come back, I want, why don't you go through this mail? Before I come back, go through this mail pile. And she says, great, sure, no problem. I went back the following week, and not only was that mail not gone through, but there were other stacks of paper and mail around the house. And I just thought that was curious. Nothing to criticize, nothing to judge, nothing to label, but I thought, how interesting that she did not do the paper. And when I talked with her about it, she said things about her relationship with time. I didn't have the time, I ran out of time. I didn't know how long it would take me. And there were a lot of things coming out of her mouth that were related to the concept of time. A few weeks later, I'm working with somebody else, and I'd only been in her house for maybe 20, 30 minutes. And she holds up a glasses case. And she said, these used to be my mom's. Should I let them go? And my very first thought was, sure, what the hell? But then I stopped and I paused and I took a breath. And I was so struck with the fact that she had just met me and she was asking me permission to let something go. And I thought that was interesting and it made me very curious. And it was nothing to judge or to label, but it sat with me. And I wasn't quite sure why she was not able to make that decision without me. Well, within the first couple of years of having my company, I found online a group called the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. Now you can well imagine, I do have a PhD in history, so I kind of am, my friends call me a credentials junkie. And in my industry as an organizer, I have now earned every kind of certification and acknowledgement that one could possibly earn. So I found the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, and ICD, as it's known, is where mental health professionals meet professional organizers. And so I availed myself of the coursework and training to that. And what I've come to understand is that often, and this is not an exact science, this is just my observation based on hundreds of hours in the field, often I'm recognizing that people are holding on to, people tend toward clutter when they're dealing with a dysfunctional or not highly functioning executive function. Because what does it mean to be organized? Being organized means that you know how long it takes you to do stuff. Being organized is being able to look at this case and go, oh, I'm done with it, and having a bag by your front door where you would bring donations. Being organized for a lot of people is being able to get what you want when you need it and being able to put it back just as easily. I walk into a lot of homes and folks tell me that they want to be minimalist. And that's a word that's been bandied about for the last 5 or 7 years. And when I see the volume of things in the house, I say, well, okay, minimalism to me means you're okay with letting go with about 90% of what's here because the volume is great. And they go, no, I can't do that. I said, so think about what it means for you to be organized. And this is a question for all of you. A lot of us hold on to things, from my perspective and my years in the field now, holding on to things for one of two reasons. One reason, and a lot of people do this, and if I was standing in front of you, I've asked for a show of hands. What is one thing you think you're holding on to that you think you may need someday? Is anybody holding on to something they think they may need someday? Barbara, can you tell us what that thing is?
All of my mom's stuff that I think I can repurpose. Because
Okay.
I'm from the generation that if you can repurpose it for something else, and I don't have time to do all of that.
Okay, Barbara, I'm going to tell you that at some point, everybody from that repurposing generation is going to be dead. And what will we say about the next generation that wants to hold on to things because they think they may repurpose? It's not always necessarily a generational thing. It's that executive function, because the executive function, if it was operating on all systems, would say, yes, it could be repurposed. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to prioritize the time. I'm going to let it go. Right. And so again, so we're holding on to things we think we may need someday. And to Barbara's point, we're not quite sure what someday has to look like in order for this thing to be used. Everything from the crock pot to the yarn to whatever you got. We're not sure what someday has to look like in order for this thing to be used. And if I let it go and someday comes, the other thing we're not sure about, what catastrophe will befall us if we don't have it. We're holding on to it because we think we may need it someday. We don't know what someday has to look like, but if it comes, dun-dun, something not good is going to happen. But we in no way, shape, or form ever get to the place where we're going to identify the catastrophe. So we don't often think about what has to happen in my life, what has to change in my life in order for this thing to be used finally or again. And if I have a declutter session by myself and I let this thing go and someday arrives, now what? Now what am I going to do? And I got news for you folks. Right this moment is someday. Someday just happened a second ago. We are always in someday. It's always someday and it's always later. And unless we put a variable on it, like a date and a time, someday will remain this nebulous, amorphic, this unknown beast. It could be an unknown beast because if we have a volume of things that we think we may need someday. And that's external storage. That's the land of indecision. Public storage and similar is like a $36 billion industry. It is the land of someday. It is the land of later. And so we hold on to these things we think we may need someday, and we're not getting clear about what someday has to look like. And we're also not clear at all about if someday comes and I could probably use this and I don't have it, now what?
Go out and buy it again.
I'm sorry?
You go out and buy it again.
You'll buy it again,
Yeah.
but you're not thinking, is there something here I could substitute? Can I borrow it real quick from my neighbor? We tend to err on the side of holding on to the fear of letting go of someday versus honoring our desire to not have clutter in the present.
Mm-hmm.
We're also holding on to things that came into our life from the past. Grandma's platters from the old country, bowling trophies, business suits, power suits, jackets with shoulder pads, 3-inch heels, many, many pair of black pants. How many black pants does one woman need, I ask you?
20.
We're holding on to nylons that we don't wear anymore and mismatched socks. And my gosh, we're holding on to things that have been in our lives for a long time that no longer serve our life.
Right.
We're holding on to greeting cards from the past. We're holding on to books. I know I'm talking to people who have worked at a university. I know from books. I know from lots and lots and lots of books and drafts. I know from these things. For many years, I worked on my dissertation and I taught, I was teaching 7 classes at 4 universities. I was a Rhodes, R-O-A-D-S scholar, a freeway flyer. And through the 90s, I was teaching and dissertating and working full time. Yes, I'm a beast. And I was doing all this and I had my classes in the evening. I was in graduate school teaching all of this. And I had acquired over many years a beautiful 5 bookcase, 5 floor to ceiling bookcases filled to the brim, alphabetized by genre in my fields of study. So my books, I love my books. I love these books. I loved having this book collection. And the books were brought in for one of 2 reasons, for Regina to dissertate and for Regina to teach. And the books served me very well. And the other thing I loved about the books was anybody who came over to my house and they went into my office at home, I just assumed you would walk in and go, wow, a really smart person lives here. I would just assume you would think, oh, wow, did you read all these? I would assume you were impressed by my collection. And further, I also graduate students in my cohort at SC would call me up, and if they didn't want to get something through interlibrary loan, they would say, Regina, do you have? And I go, yes, I do. And it would be in my bag and on campus the next day. So I also loved being a resource. That was very important to me. So the books had acquired over many years a great deal of significance in my life. Well, I finished dissertating and I was no longer teaching, and UCLA had hired me to be an administrator. And so really the purpose of the books had been met, and they were no longer germane to my life. They had allowed me to complete the tasks that I had brought them in for. But as I'm working at UCLA, the books seemed to grow in importance to me. And I don't know why. I think it had a lot to do with people coming over to my place and seeing my office and developing a great number of assumptions about me. And in 2007, I was leaving a long-term relationship, and I had to dismantle. I knew two things about me. One, I'm not somebody who is going to be inconvenienced. I'm very busy. I have to get what I need when I need it and when I put it back when I'm done. And two, I won't pay for external storage. So I had all these books, and I was moving from a house to a one-bedroom apartment. I'm like, holy cow, what am I going to do with these books? And I had to have a come to Regina meeting. And I remember standing in front of my bookcase and thinking, okay, who are you? Imagine you without these books. And I was like, I'm still smart. No one can take my degrees away. I'll figure out how to be a resource. And that was a big thing for me because I loved that people could count on me. I loved being a resource. And so I decided to put an ad on Craigslist, and a smart young graduate student from Cal State Long Beach came over, and I filled her car till the tires were flat. I waved this promising young scholar off with the best collection of books she could possibly acquire in an hour. And I kept 5. I still have them. I still have 5, 2-volume set of Eleanor Roosevelt's biography. And the rest of the books in my bookcase right now are being used for the book that I'm currently working on. I am engaged in writing my next book. It's called Emotional Labor, While Women's Work is Never Done and What to Do About It. And so all of the books, and it's coming from the perspective of the executive function of the brain. So everything in my book library, in my bookcase right now, are books that I'm using right now. And I've just come to a place where if I'm holding on to stuff I think I may need someday because I'm afraid of letting it go. And if I'm holding on things that came into my life from the past, and I'm afraid of letting that go, I've decided for me, Regina, that I'd rather not live in a place of fear, that I'd rather live in a place of clarity and openness, and that I want my present, where I live today, to not have fear. If we're holding on to things from the past and we're holding on to things from the future, I want you to examine, do a deep dive, get curious about why that may be. Don't label, judge, or resent yourself. Just kind of dig a little deeper. Why is this? Why is holding on to this important to me? What does it say about who I am, my values? Is there a way to shift my thinking about this thing in order to remove it from my life? If I'm saying that this thing is part of my clutter, I can't decide what your clutter is. I know what mine is. And so I always have a bag by my door. I'll walk through my apartment. I'll go, oh, done with that book. And I'll just stick it in the bag. Elsa, you had a question.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to finish and then we do questions.
I'll take questions anytime.
Okay. What about photos, pictures from 30 trips that I don't have kids. My husband died. Things that are remembrance and stuff like that. And I have them in boxes that I will never see them. So I was thinking of starting to clean that up, because it's not fair to leave it to my nieces and nephews. And what to do with that? Just throw it in the garbage or what? And then the same with, for example, tablecloths, hand embroidered from my grandmother, from Europe, old films, cassettes.
Okay, I get it. I get it. I get it.
Okay.
So what Elsa is talking about is what we would call memorabilia.
Yeah, sentimental.
Can you
Yeah.
can you mute yourself now? Because I know it'll be very easy for you to keep chiming in and so what to do with pictures, what to do with hand embroidered tablecloths. There's not one answer to this. You know, pictures, dealing with all of our photographs and slides can be tedious, mind-numbing, and boring, and irritating, and frustrating, and a lot of flipping work. There are a number of things you can do with old photographs. Gather them all up, put them in a baggie, and take them to Costco and have them digitized, and just have DVDs made out of all your pictures. My best suggestion is, if you are going to do something like that, take the time. I got to make sure that I talk about time. Let me see what time it is. We have till 11, right, Maria? Okay. Any declutter project that you are going to embark upon, I cannot overstate this. It has to be on your calendar. You have to give it time. You have to put it on your calendar. Nothing will get in the way of the appointment that you made with yourself to start your decluttering projects. And not only do you have to put a date on your calendar, you have to give yourself a block of time. Now, here's what I know about people with clutter. Often they're not sure how long it takes them to do anything. If that's you, or if you're somebody who is always late, then the chances are you don't have a great relationship with time. If this is you, I want you to decide how long it takes you to take a shower or bathe, and then time yourself, just to see if you're right. If you're not correct, you may be underestimating or overestimating your how long it takes you to do stuff, prepare a meal, take a shower, take a walk, whatever it is that you do in your life on a regular basis. Take a stab at how long you think it takes you to do something, and then time yourself. And that's one really, really, really good strategy to start getting a handle on how to declutter yourself. Because if you don't know how long it's going to take you to do something, you're going to start a project, you're going to run out of time, and you're going to leave a bigger mess. So to Elsa's point, if there's a lot of pictures, or if there's a lot of greeting cards, if there are a lot of clothes, take a stack, take a handful. Wait, put it on your calendar. Give yourself 30 minutes. Take a stack of pictures and start sorting the rocks and the houses and the trees that you don't know where they are. Those get right into the recycle bin. And then the many duplicates of pictures, those can go right into the recycle bin. And if you've got a stack of pictures in your hand and you've given yourself 30 minutes, and after 30 minutes, you haven't finished the stack of pictures, you've given yourself really good information. You need more time. If you've gone through the stack of pictures in the 30 minutes that you've allotted yourself, you've given yourself really good information. You can deal with a bigger stack. anything that has to do with decluttering is a project and it's a process. It's never, ever, 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 ever one and done. The two hardest parts about getting organized are the decisions about what to hold on to and let go, and then how you're going to maintain it. I've had a lot of people say to me over many, many years, I clear it up, but it comes back. And I got news for you. It doesn't have legs. You bring it back. One of the big significant parts about being organized is how we describe our relationship to all of this. If we say it comes back, we've got this sort of disassociation to what it is. Instead of saying, I cleared my space, but my habits and behaviors never change, and so I continued the same habits and behaviors. It's the habits, the behaviors, and your relationship to time, your relationship to your environment, your relationship to the things that are in your space. If you're not coming at it with a sense of emotional management, I mean, I think emotional mismanagement is a lot of the stuff that we're holding on to that we think we may need someday. There's that, and like I said, I can't overstate this. There's so much, we so distrust ourselves that we won't be able to take care of ourselves if we need that crock pot. And I know that there's stuff that you're holding on to someday that may have been very expensive, or you really believe that should you need it, this is the right exact thing for you. But again, if this stuff is causing clutter, you have to have a different relationship to it. You have to shift the story. My story about my relationships to the books, I had to walk away from that whole experience just believing I was smart, that I didn't need a library to prove it. I had to walk away from the dismantling of my bookcase, knowing that the books served a really great purpose in my life when I needed them in my life. And when the purpose had been served, I could open the space up to either not have anything in the space or to use the space for things that currently serve me. Did that help, Elsa? Anybody, any other questions that you may have?
Yes, I have a question.
Agrippina.
Yeah, my big problem is how do you motivate yourself to even start the decluttering process?
Well, I would want to know, Agrippina, why do you want to declutter? I mean, it's you know what I mean? It's a very personal decision. So here's one motivation. Ask your friend who has clutter and see how you can be accountability partners to each other.
You mean invite them to help me?
You can do a Zoom call with them, and you can each work on your own junk drawer. You can each work on a box of papers. If you know you're going to have that accountability buddy. One of the reasons why my clients and one of the reasons why our clients are so successful is because my team shows up at 9 a.m. They open the door at 9 a.m. right? And we start. So you've got to put something on the calendar. Bring somebody into your life that's going to be an accountability person. Chances are you have friends with this problem or with this sense of anxiety. So motivate each other. Another form of motivation is what does the end result of no clutter look like, sound like, smell like, feel like? What is it that you want to, do you want open space finally, or do you want that space to be used for something else? So again, so much of this starts in our cognitive I think 90% is cognitive, emotional, making the shift inside, and 10% is actually dealing with the stuff. If you can do this pre-work in your head, from writing things down, another strategy is whatever you use to take notes, and I hope it's just one thing that you use to take notes. My preferred note-taking is a spiral notebook. I go through one of these a quarter. This is all I use. I do not use lined notepads because it's a hassle to turn the paper over. And so take something that you write notes with, walk around your space and write a list of everything that you think you want to declutter. Just go crazy. If you've got 5 junk drawers, put them all in there. Then make a list of how long you think it's going to take you to do those tasks. Pick one thing, like photographs, like a junk drawer. Time yourself. I mean, if we're motivated to come to a workshop like this, Agrippina, I think that's a good part of it. But I think what helps me to stay motivated in areas of my life is to bring people in, to create a village around it, and to get some people to be accountable to me, and I will be accountable to them. And set up a real strategy with your friends to do this, and give it a year. It doesn't have to happen in a week. It could be once a week for a year. You didn't acquire it in a very short period of time. This has been building for a while.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Michael Hall, I'm afraid my camera isn't working, which is why you can't see me.
Okay.
I would posit that perhaps what made it somewhat easy for you to get rid of those books is because you found somewhere where they could go. You found a home for them.
Mm.
Much of what we have in our closets, those fine linens, that fine china that we never use, we don't want to get rid of, possibly because we don't know where to send it. We don't know where to take it. We would like it to go to a home rather than just be lost. The fine stuff that came over from Europe with the, from the grandparents when they immigrated. Do you have any suggestions as to where one could find places? I've got thousands of books which I'd like to get rid of, but it's very difficult to find places to take thousands of books.
Right.
I've got fine linens, I've got fine china, which I'd like to get rid of. Any suggestions along those lines?
Of course I do.
Good.
It's not the first time I've been asked this. Michael, I want you to put a premium on your level of comfort than the premium you're putting on these artifacts. I want you to think of how you're going to be more comfortable now, how these things will eventually be more comfortable. I want to see if you could stay out of the end result of these things and get more comfortable with how you want to live right now. That said, during this pandemic, it's going to be hit and miss. I am an advocate of putting everything in boxes and bags and bringing it to the nearest Goodwill, and they're open and not open, they're open and not open. There's a Goodwill on Washington and Sepulveda, and it's a Goodwill bookstore. What I'm saying is, I want you to put a premium on you than the stuff. Fine linens are fine linens. Books are books. Many of us have had fine linens. Many of us have had books. Lorraine is saying the UCLA thrift store. What's happening right now is a lot of places are getting overcrowded. So you do the best you can, but I will want to tell you about one resource that is something that my company is doing over the last 2 years, and you can do it yourself, although it's a lot of work. But but there's a Canadian company called Max Sold, MAXSOLD.com. And it's a platform for you to do your own estate auction, for you to sell things in your space that you no longer want. And you just follow their website. My company does it, and we charge a good chunk of change to catalog a sale. People will hire us to catalog an estate sale when the house is now empty, or the client has done a big downsizing, maybe to an assisted living community, and then we'll sell the contents of the house. But it's not a money maker. It mitigates the cost of hiring professionals to dismantle the estate. But if you're going to do it yourself, and the people at Max Sold are very good customer service and they can help you, it's just time consuming. Deborah is saying there's neighborhood groups, there's Facebook Marketplace, there's Nextdoor, there's all kinds of local sources that you could take a picture, put it online, and you just have to meet somebody to have them come over and pick it up. But you know, Michael, the things that you're describing, these lovely things from Europe and the books, and you started saying, I felt good about somebody getting them. I actually did not have that feeling. What I felt good about was relieving myself of the burden of books. If she hadn't answered my ad on Craigslist, and she was the only one to answer my ad on Craigslist, they would have been boxed up and brought to Goodwill. They really would have. I had a problem that I needed to solve, and I saw it as a problem that I needed to solve. And so, you know, there's not the perfect solution to anything, but I do encourage my clients to it's like the oxygen on the plane. Give yourself the oxygen first. Stay out of the results of where your stuff needs to end up, and take care of you first. If you were to just donate everything that no longer serves you, and you start with a clear slate, a clear path, as it were, herein, anything after that that you decide no longer serves you, it's going to be a lot lighter in volume. And I think, okay, that's a good time for you, the rhetoric you, to be choosy about where it ends up. But at this point, when there is a volume of stuff, I'm an advocate of just get it the hell out of my house. And Lynn Underwood said that local libraries, yeah, there's a lot of places that will take your stuff. And right now, just because of COVID, it's a bit hit and miss. I know the Goodwill on Pico and Sepulveda has been open and taking Savers in Santa Monica. Yeah, the UCLA Faculty Club. Oh my gosh, I love that place. Has a really great library, lending library. Any other questions? Yeah, you're welcome.
Please remind us of the name of your company.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Let me clear it. If I can see. Here I go. If you got a question, shout it out.
Okay, Regina, two things. One isn't a question, it's just a blurb for you. So many, many years ago, Regina organized my files in my office at UCLA. And I could not do it. I absolutely could not do it on my own. And it remained with that order, in that orderly way, for the next 5 or 10 years until I left. So that's a commercial for Regina. It was life-changing, honestly. I was paralyzed.
Oh, I remember
until she did that. So but here's one of my dilemmas, and I'm surrounded. I'm just looking around the room, and I've got all this stuff. Okay, so I have this. my weakness is clothes, and so I probably, when I retired, had 25 pencil skirts and matching cashmere sweaters, and I'm down to, I think, 10. Will I ever use them again? I will not. I don't go to work anymore, but I love them. I love my hot pink sequined stilettos. I will never, I'm not saving them because I think I'm going to need them again in some future life. I'm saving them because when I look at them, I love them. So I can't, I mean, it's that emotional attachment, not for their use, because when I see them, they make me happy.
And
I
Deb,
should just keep them, right?
yeah, if they're not in the way, if they're not causing clutter, if you're not tripping over them, cussing at them, what the hell?
I just feel guilty.
Well, there's that. You know, I'm an advocate of not holding on to anything out of guilt. But again, if it's not creating havoc in our life, I see no reason to do anything with it. You know, I get calls from adult children who want me to, who are calling me about their parents. I get a lot of calls from adult children calling me about their parents. And my, you know, it's like, well, what is your mom in danger of a slip and fall? Well, no. Well, what's your investment in this? Leave her alone. You know, I mean, well, it just looks awful, but it's her awful and you don't live there. Let it be. If she's not, if it's not unsafe or unhealthy, if she has access to hot water and the stove, and if she's able to conduct the activities of daily living without a problem, leave your mama alone. Any other questions? Agrippina.
You mentioned earlier that your brain is wired like to be organized, and you know, is that supposed to be hereditary? Like if you have children, are they also organized like you?
Yeah, my mom is not, my dad is. My dad raised me with ABC, always be cleaning.
So that's hereditary.
It's just, I have 3 sisters and 2 of them are like me and 1 of them needs me. So my sister is an esthetician and I trade facials with organizing.
Oh, that's a nice trade-off.
Yeah, it's a great trade-off. I wouldn't trade with anybody else but her, but yeah, so it's often hereditary. I run a program for children and adults with ADHD. And usually parents are in the meeting because their child has just been diagnosed, and because of their age, they weren't diagnosing them when they were teenagers, and now the adults are coming to understand that they've got these brain-based conditions as well. So it is often genetic.
Yeah.
What else?
I used to volunteer for Meals on Wheels, delivering meals to the mostly seniors, and I noticed that a lot of them are very cluttered apartment. So I was wondering if you become very cluttery, is that part of getting old, or is that a sign of beginning Alzheimer's?
I'm not a psychologist. I don't know.
Oh, see.
Yeah, I couldn't guess. I could guess, but I'm not gonna be accurate.
Yeah, because I see some. I have a friend who used to be like obsessive compulsive.
Let's see if we have any other questions regarding clutter. That's okay.
Sorry.
Any other challenges?
This might probably goes in line with your calendaring, but I have a problem with things that are valuable that I want to get rid of, but they're not as easy to just give away because they'll command a price if I took the time and energy to figure out how to sell them.
Yeah, calendar, Rick. I have a magic wand in the trunk of my car, but it's often broken. It's just the art and practice of decluttering and staying organized, everything's a project. Everything needs to go on the calendar. Everything needs to be presented with a block of time.
Right.
Coming to understand how long it takes us to do anything these are all really important components to how to get and stay organized. Truly. Yeah, Elsa.
Yeah. Any word for cassettes, old films, that type of things? Garbage or any?
Well, if there's anything on them that you want to preserve, you need to bring it to a digital professional.
No. Just give them away.
I just, everything goes into you can take it to Goodwill. I'm telling you, tell anybody I said this. I take it to Goodwill. I say it's household goods. I walk away.
Okay, good.
And then I let them make the decision of where
Right.
I just want to get it the hell out of my house. Right, well,
Regina,
yeah.
I have a question about breaking the habit of tearing out and saving articles and things from magazines, thinking, oh, I'm gonna do something with this or about it, and then don't get around to it.
Rick, what's the answer?
Throw it out.
Put it on the calendar.
But it's
You have to put it on the calendar. If you want to read it, you have to decide when you're going to do that. Pick Wednesday afternoon is my reading of reading day. Make a date with yourself to do this. I tell people they have books on their nightstands. They have books double and triple stacked in their bookcases. I said, count up all the books, calculate how long it takes you to read a book, check your age. Are you going to be around? Are you going to be alive long enough to read everything you have? Simple question. No. Then you've got to make a decision on what to do with the books. And then put it on the calendar. Everything goes on the calendar. Everything. Paper, clothes, books, reading material. As you see yourself tearing that out, is this going to be on my Wednesday afternoon reading day? You've got to give yourself the time to do it. I know it feels good to rip it out, but wouldn't it feel better to read it?
Thank you. That's helpful.
I've got I have a someday maybe folder. I think I got that from getting things done this guy, but I use it for the wrong purpose. I never look at that stuff. No, I won't, but it takes away that anxiety of throwing something away that like something I tear out of a magazine. And that folder is not too big yet, so it's not really in my way. But it's a trick, I guess. I trick myself because I've never. A lot of
people with a shopping issue, and they have trained themselves to put wish lists on Amazon rather than hit buy. You know, that it assuages their sense of the hunt, you know, and finding, you know, seeing something beautiful and lovely, and then they just put it on a wish list, and they've been able to, you know, move forward from that. So whatever you can think of. If there are no more questions, I always like to, I used to spend, before COVID, I spent a lot of time on the freeway. Maria knows what's coming. And because I spent a lot of time on the freeway, I used to make up songs about clutter. And so I like to always end with one. And so here goes. Imagine there's no clutter. It isn't hard to do. No need for too much. A little bit is cool. Imagine kitchen counters with just a bowl of fruit. Ooh, ooh. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody. See you next
Thank you.
time.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you,
Thank
everyone, for
you.
participating. Happy decluttering.
Happy decluttering, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See
Take
you
care.
tonight.
day.
Thank you.